Joining us for his weekly Thursday conversation is former BYU and NFL quarterback John Beck on the Deseret First Credit Union hotline. John, while we were talking over the break, Jerem's shaved head was brought up, and I want you to finish the comment because I didn't get to hear what you thought about Jerem's shaved head after BYU beat Gonzaga last year.
Well, it just surprised me.
Me too.
There's some people that you're like, I can see that person with a shaved head. There's some people that you don't.
I know where I fit based on that comment. Yeah, exactly. I don't dare say anything like that ever again. But BYU Hoops had a tremendous win at the time. Now we fast forward to what happened against San Jose State and now Missouri, and BYU hopes to go in and win that game in Kansas City. What do you think of this matchup this week?
You know, I'm excited for it. I think, when you play a team like Missouri, I know that there's a lot of talk about what's going to happen because of what's going on campus. What kind of team are we facing? They have a tough defense. Their offense has been struggling. You just don't know. But at the same time, it's a quality SEC opponent that you never know what game all of a sudden their offense might click. I've seen it too many times. Inconsistent offense can all of a sudden, one game, put it together. And you just don't know what type of team that they're going to be on Saturday. They may struggle again or they may be good. So I'm excited for the matchup.
What kind of effect do you think that Missouri will be dealing with given all of the off-the-field issues in their preparation for the actual football game?
Well, I think it'll either serve as a distraction or it'll serve as motivation. At times, teams can have things going on that take away from their focus. You know, there's like a little equation that says success is when preparation plus opportunity minus distractions. And so what type of distraction are they going to have? Is it going to take a huge toll on them? Are they going to be able to be completely focused? Or is it going to serve as a huge motivating factor to try to prove a point? Is it going to be that fuel to their fire that they needed to get things turned around? I just actually noticed that they're doing this whiteout with a different jersey that Greg Wrubell tweeted about. You just don't know. It could be an effect where in the first quarter, if things start going the wrong way, this is a team that hasn't had a lot going their way, and now they're going through this distraction. Boom, you could all of a sudden be in a situation where they start to crumble because they weren't ready to show up for game day. So I hope that's the team we face.
Yeah, I'm with you, John. I think that this really, it's going to be polarizing in some way. It's either going to be a disaster and BYU wins, by a larger margin than maybe we think, or it's a better game than we think. Missouri's 4-5, but they still have athletes from the same teams that won the SEC East. So BYU has to be careful with that kind of speed. Therefore, how do you attack a team like Missouri, like a TCU when you played in the Mountain West?
Well, I think you, first off, have to use the whole field to your advantage. The reason why teams go after speed, why they recruit team speed, is because they want to cover the entire field. Well, that's the same reason that how you beat team speed is you make them cover the entire field. You know, both times that I prepped for TCU when I was at BYU, I was excited about pushing the ball downfield. And you may say, well, golly, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to do that against a team with a lot of team speed. But I knew that pushing things downfield, you may not hit on it all the time, but it's going to open up some other things underneath or in the middle of those, zone or match schemes. So if you become cautious, if you don't push the ball, team speed can eat you alive. So I think, hey, let's be aggressive. Let's use our big guys, and maybe we're saying it's not speed versus speed, but maybe we're using those big guys to stretch some things down the field, and then it can open up some other things. You have to do that. If you don't push and try to get things to work downfield against a team with a lot of speed, it makes it tough.
John Beck with us on BYU Sports Nation. John, how concerned are you about BYU's banged-up offensive line against really an elite defense like Missouri?
Well, I think we saw it last week. I watched the game, and I know that there was disappointment in the run game. There were some things that were happening offensively, and people don't realize the type of an impact having multiple offensive linemen down with injury can have on a team, especially the center. You know, that center is the rock in the middle. He's the one making all the calls. He's the one that everybody relies on. And now all of a sudden, if you don't have that voice there, and if I'm right, I think our center is one of the captains for the offense. So you now pull your team captain, that guy that's doing everything, and then somebody else around him. It's huge. It's all more important of why you have to have quality people behind them to step up. And a lot of that comes from guys getting reps. I've been on teams where you lose a specific lineman or two, and the guys that step in, they do a good job because they're experienced. But I've also been in situations on teams where your stud offensive linemen go down, and the people that replace them are young and inexperienced. And in those situations, things always struggle. The run game always struggled. The continuity in the pass protections was difficult, and it makes it hard for the quarterback because it's just, are you having somebody with experience take that person's place? And if you don't, it can be tough. So if we were still relying on the young guys, thank goodness, or these backups, thank goodness that they got some experience against San Jose State. If we do get the starters back, I mean, that can be really big.
17 was barely enough to win against San Jose State with a banged-up offensive line. Now, in this game, Missouri's defense is really good. The offense, one of the worst in the country. You could say top three, worst offenses in the country statistically. And through 9 games, I think that means something. So how many points do you think BYU needs to win this game?
Well, I've always liked Broncos' number. I know that whole thing of 24 didn't hold, we didn't even put that much last week, but I would feel like if the offense can put up 24, I just don't see how their offense is going to do that. They've been pretty inept. I did say at the beginning of the show, you never know when they can put it together, and that's true. So I use that whole 24-point thing as if, what if this is the game that they do put something together? What if they score more than they usually score? Well, then I still believe, though, that if we can score over 24 points, we will be fine. And now that's going to be a challenge. I can't say that I've sat and broken down a lot of Missouri games. I've watched some of their games just because I knew they were on BYU's schedule, and I do think they have a good defense. I think it's all going to be on, like I said, how well can we attack their speed, and then can we establish a run game? Any team that has a good interior front seven, you have to establish some type of a run game. Otherwise, the pass rush can just tee off on the quarterback, and it becomes very difficult on the edges. It puts too much pressure on your tackles if you do not establish a run game. If those defensive ends and everybody, the backers, can just pin their ears back and come on a pass rush, it can make things difficult.
Well, here's the good news for BYU. T-John Karoma, the center, will be back and able to control things on the offensive line. So BYU will have that. Unknown about the other guys. Riker Matthews probable. Louis Lapuaho is questionable, as is Kyle Johnson.
Yeah, the 2 guards in question, the tackles and center good.
But the center will be back. With that in mind, John, BYU is now a 6.5-point favorite going into this game against Missouri. I anticipate an emotionally charged start from the Tigers, but once the game kind of gets into the ebb and flows in the second quarter, for me, it's just going to become a football game. Are you buying that BYU can survive that emotional burst early in the game?
I think so, because I think that BYU's played a lot of emotional games already this year. I think that regardless if we jump out or they jump out, either way, I think that this is one of the most mentally strong BYU teams I've seen in a long time, just because of, I think, the experience that they've had and then the results that they've had in those experiences. I've said it a few times before on the show, to have a team where we've been able to come back, it makes a huge difference in the way emotions affect you in a game. And I think that however this game plays out in the first 2 quarters, it's not going to take a huge toll on the team if for some reason it doesn't go like they want in the beginning. They're playing at Arrowhead Stadium. They have their fan base is going to be there. And I've been on teams that have struggled where your fans, if things don't go your way, start to kind of turn on you. They're not as emotionally involved in the game, or it doesn't seem like they support you as much. And that can happen to the Missouri team. So those guys have a lot at stake as well for how their emotion runs. Things could not start out well, and all of a sudden that stadium could feel like it's not so much rooting for them. So I think either way, the BYU team, because of how they've handled things this year and because of the good results that they've had, I would say they're going to be able to handle whatever emotional impact these things that have been happening at Missouri or how the team comes out of the gate. I think the BYU team can handle it.
John, I feel the same way, and we've discussed this on the show, where once Mitch Matthews comes down with that ball against Nebraska, all of a sudden this team believes they can win any game because they make this miraculous play. Now they have a moment that they can seize. BYU can't control what's going on campus at Missouri, but what has happened is a bigger situation than a sporting event, right? There's going to be a lot of eyes on this game. Brent Musburger's calling this game. The highlights from this game will be on everywhere because of Missouri in this week. So how does BYU seize the moment, in your opinion, in Kansas City Saturday?
Well, here's something I've liked about that situation. I think that BYU in general seized the moments at the beginning of the year that made America aware of BYU. Everybody knew about the back-to-back thrillers at the end. Tanner Mangum came home from a mission, and nobody knew probably the backups name that well, and all of a sudden, bam, in 2 games, Tanner Mangum jumps on the scene because of how the games ended. And I think that it gives BYU an opportunity once again on a national stage to do something. And what have they done every time that's happened for them? Every time that's been an option, BYU's come through this year. And that's not something that they think about. They're not saying, oh, this is a national whatever game, we got to go in there and take advantage of this and that. They're going to treat it like every other game this year. But how has every other game gone? They've handled it so well. So, I know that this last week's game, some fans might have felt like, man, what type of team do we really have? Like, we didn't really show up. I'm here to tell you, when you play 12 regular season games a year, you are not going to just have 12 great games. You're going to have a game here or there where it's going to come down to one side of the ball maybe struggling and the other side needs to bail them out. You got to have a few, instead of clanking them off the uprights, they got to go in the upright, and you got to squeak by a team that maybe you thought you were going to beat by 2 touchdowns. That just happens when you try to put together a great season. So I'm excited for the stage, once again, that BYU gets to play on. And they go into a stadium that it's not any bigger than one they haven't played in before. They go on a stage that's not any bigger than one they haven't played on before. And they're going to go try to have the same result that they've been getting throughout the season. If they need to come in the fourth quarter and make a play to win it, right now their minds are telling them they can, and I really like that.
John Beck with us on BYU Sports Nation. Good chance the Cougars get ranked if they can beat Missouri on Saturday. That would be 6 straight wins, which would also be a season or a Independence high win streak for the Cougars. Now, John, before you go, is there anything that BYU could do on the football field that would ever make you want to shave your head?
No, I don't have a great hairline right now that's not going to be wanting to have my head shaved. Like, yeah, I'll do it. Trust me, guys. I'm trying to find ways to make my hair kind of like cover up those side things.
The canyons.
Yeah, I ain't shaving it. Trust me. My wife and I have had this conversation. As I've gotten older, that thing's kind of sneaking up on me, moving around. So I'm like, oh, crap. Last thing I'm doing is shaving that thing.
It'll get you.
John, enjoy the game on Saturday. Thanks for the time.
All right, see you guys.